As I mentioned previously, we're going to use badstore.net, which is a downloadable website that has a lot of vulnerabilities to it. And we can use this to practice on so that we don't actually hack in any actual sites. You can download this as an ISO, and I have done so and loaded it on a VM. And we've given it the IP address of 192.168.163.145. And I want to use a couple of tools against badstore.net. And if you download it and look at the documentation, you'll see that it's a little bit of an older program from like around 2005 or so, but it has a lot of vulnerabilities in it that you can use to test your hacking skills against and your software against. So the first thing I'm going to do is run an Nmap scan against it and then a Nessus scan against it to see what vulnerabilities we get and to footprint it kind of and enumerate what's running on it. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm looking at ZenMap here, and I've run an intent scan on the badstore.net site. And what I've got here is a lot of different things here. I've got some open ports, obviously, which we expected to get. So we have port 80 open, HTTP. We have port 443 open, which is the SSL port. So we know that it can use ports 80 and 443, the standard web ports, and the standard secure SSL port. But I also got some banner information here. So I see that it's running Apache Daemon here, the Apache web server 1.3.28, which is a little bit of an insecure version. It's an older version. And we know that it's running on Unix or Linux, because we can see some other things in there that would tell us that. We also are seeing some interesting things here about some potentially vulnerable situations here with the web server itself and how it's set up. So that could give us some information here. We see what ciphers it's supporting. So this web server is actually giving up a lot of information. We also see that it's running MySQL, an older version again, 4.1.7, and that has some vulnerabilities connected with it too. So right off the Nmap scan, we see that there's some useful information we could get off of this server that we could take advantage of. So one of the next steps would be to run a Nessus scan and see what vulnerabilities we come up with, and also start researching vulnerabilities on the web, getting information about the particular versions of software that we see on it that might have some existing vulnerabilities we could take advantage of. So let's go ahead and switch over to Nessus and see what Nessus comes up with. So here we're looking at a Nessus scan of Badstore, and we can see there's some red and some orange there. So let's take a look at what it came up with. So we've got quite a few vulnerabilities on this particular website, some serious ones. We've got vulnerabilities obviously that have to do with Apache, the version of server that it's running, and we know that it's a little bit old. We also know that it's running MySQL, an older version. And there's just some vulnerabilities here that we could obviously take advantage of if we knew exactly what to do and how they were set up. So the remote database server can be accessed without a password. That's one interesting one that we could take advantage of. We also have some MySQL server default account credentials. So that's one of the things, administrators should do immediately is change default credentials, default passwords and administrators. And obviously on this site that hasn't been done. We know that it's been done this way intentionally for us. But there's some CVE information out on here, and if you look through here a little bit, here is the port that the MySQL server is running on, and we get some default usernames and passwords here. This is the following remote credentials that Nessus was able to log into the box with. Scrutinizer, admin, Monty, Sumpass, MySQL. These are common passwords that Nessus used to get into the database portion of this web server. So if we go back here, we'll see some other things here. Here's a critical one right here. And the critical one basically tells you that there is a heap-based buffer overflow vulnerability that we could execute against this particular server. Now, how would you execute that vulnerability? Well, you'd have to have some exploit code, or better yet, if you want to make it easy on yourself, you could use something like Metasploit that comes with Backtrack. You could use the free version or the commercial version, Metasploit Pro, and you could use it to attack this web server and actually exercise these vulnerabilities. So this gives you some information on what's out there that you could take advantage of. So obviously there's a lot of information here on the particular web server that is very vulnerable. Got some highs and one critical here. The next thing I want to do is take a look at HTT Tracker so we can show you how you can actually download a copy of the website for offline viewing and manipulation. So let's go ahead and take a look at that as well. So we're in our Windows box again, our XP box, and I have HTTrack website copier. And let's go through the wizard that it gives us here. And it can actually give us, I'm just going to say Badstore as the project name here. project category, you can put test in here, and base path, my websites. And what we need to do is put the web address here, and I'm going to put http:// and 192.168.163.145 in here. And there's some options we can use as well. We can look at the different options, the scan rules, what kind of files to download, and so forth. I'm going to leave everything at its default. I'm going to say next here, and we should be able to go ahead and finish this. We don't need a remote access connection here. And let's just go here and do this. And it's starting to scan files. It's starting to grab the different files from BadStore. Now, it's going to take a while, so we're going to pick this up at a different session here. So we'll open up and see what it got for us.